duped by our religious leaders to understand, to ignore, and continue suffering. I don't know where the church is when you see those bodies being taken out from that quarry. I don't know where the church is when young people are found abandoned and killed in those places. We have to call out these religious leaders who are in bed with government. And government should know, why is it that it's our parents, our grandfathers, who worship in these churches, and the young people don't want to participate in these churches because they know the truth. They know that religion the constitution, and so they know what the constitution talks about. And whereas there is freedom of religion under the new constitution of Kenya 2010, people have grown and continued to study and find out that religion is not the solution to the problems, because we have people die every day. Responsibility to hold government institutions accountable on their conduct, hold leaders responsible in their conduct. The pulpit has been desecrated. Actually, it has been used against what it was supposed at people on the basis of religion. And we will continue to hold for, I believe, Rosemary?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much, Wakili Manwa. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can. Kindly proceed.
Okay. Mimi nilikuwa tu, first of course, I really want to thank you for giving me faith and yourself for and say I told you so. Mlikwenda, mlisimama kwenye fence, and these are the results that we have on us as of today. A lot of speakers previously have brought up really very good points. My heart goes out on what is happening in the country. I'm not in the country myself. I live in the US. And what is happening in Mukuru, some of those bodies are being drained out of that quarry and what have you. It's just heart-wrenching, so sad. Bado hata we've not recovered from Denzel's body being recovered from the quarry, and we are now seeing all these body parts as mekato na nini. And then you see some of these pronouncements from our politicians. Kuna huyu baba mmoja, I can't remember his name, sijui anaitwa Zahir ama kitu kama hicho, anatoka Kisii. He's an MP. He issued a statement, I think it's on his handle, akawa anasema, are we sure those bodies did not come from the mortuary, wakenda wakatupwa huko? Really, when a leader makes a pronouncement like that, where is NCIC? Ama all these instruments and organizations and associations and forums that we have well put together and are not doing their work. They are asleep. Na wanakula allowances na nini. So my heart goes out when statements like those are said. People should be, really take him down on that. Sio kumsalimia, I don't look for violence. Lakini, really, either to just not follow them, some of these people. In fact, nataka kuomba hata the audience here at one point, we were almost about 10,000. Follow chairman wetu wa LSK and yourself. Wewe utoke kwenye hiyo 5K at least uingie 1 million. Because why am I saying that? To get a huge following? You can always post things and you have a large audience ambao you can also influence. Na ukiwa kwenye public space, unatupatia mawaidha. You give us some of those anecdotes and information and guidance that you so eloquently put together. Of course, your speech, I know it's your co-hosting. It was a bit too long. So ungeifanya mkato hata kina Mao Deo, who is a good friend of mine, amezungumza kwa muda mrefu. For myself as a broadcaster or former broadcaster, I will not take a lot of time, but I'll just say I'll take probably another 2 minutes and say this, or a minute or so. Kusema, there are 3 things that are ailing us. I mean, of course, our children, our generations, sisi tuna watoto hiyo miaka, wamekwenda kwenye street, wametuonyesha how it is done through the social media and on the streets. And I just hope that LSK will continue doing what they are doing to protect them. All these abductions, I think our families, we need to action to call. Lazima ucheck watoto wako nyumbani, wamefika nyumbani kama wamekwenda picketing, because some of these reports we are not getting, bodies are being found. Yule mama Ishmael kutoka Githurai. And also I think in the county assembly where Dada Faith, Wakili Faith was there, reason I'm also mentioning Ishmael and Kamau, it is important. These are our children and my grandchildren. It is important that we mention their names. They have not gone in vain and we shall not forget them. Justice must be found. They have been on a lot of these spaces na niliona hata I think it was Wakili Willis akisema hata cases za kina Msando, hata cases za kina Baby Pendo, all these things are going to come up. Yes, the IG has resigned, but is that the end? So I do not want to belabor the point that may have been covered earlier by colleagues here. These things are being recorded and one can take time and even go and listen. And I usually do that. I mean, when I try to find time to listen to some of these statements that have been said. Na zile statements mzuri, mimi nachukua and I take it, I amplify them. 3 areas. Unaona, the reason our children went to the street is because of the finance bill 2024. And of course, what has happened, I'm not going to repeat that. And I just hope that that law is not enacted in whatever form. But of course, there's been threats kwa vile finance bill 2024 haikwenda through. Now we are going to borrow $1 trillion. Now, this area is not going to get this support. This area is not going to get support. Are those the pronouncements that should be coming from our leaders? Mimi siku zote huwa na quote President Obama. I mean, for purposes of this discussion, yeye in the first term alichaguliwa with only 56%. Na ile maji nyingine that never elected him, in his first statement alisema he thanked the 56% that elected him. Na akasema those who did not elect him, he is going to work day and night to bring them on board and see what he can deliver. These are the sort of things that we expect from our leaders. Sio kwenda, they get into office and they start vomiting on our shoes. Hiyo largesse and opulence that has been, talked about, we've seen it. And it's there. I mean, it is just totally unacceptable. As I go to the three areas that I know are really ailing us, other than the finance bill, kuna hiyo mambo ya just the economic times, really hard. Unakwenda with the 10,000 Kenya shillings kwenye supermarket. Some of the items you come out with, honestly, ni kama vitu viwili vitatu ama at most, very few things. People are barely surviving. I mean, living in Kenya now, I don't know, ni kama ambaye unakaa Switzerland, uko Zurich or something like that, if you have to compare to other places. But those other places, kuna minimum wage ambao watu wanalipwa. And then the second problem, unapata some of our young people, some of those kids, some of our children who are going on the streets are graduates. Na hata if you are not a graduate, wewe ni mtu wa jua kali, unajua kupolish viatu vizuri ama mambo ya mjengo, you want a job. People do not want handouts, but they want to be dignified and getting a job. At my age, I can tell you, and some of you who are young may not even remember that, when people are leaving university, wakitoka, kuna kazi na wangojea East African Industries. Wewe kama ni DO unakuwa posted somewhere. These days, that doesn't happen. So those are the two really, I believe, that things that LSK can take up, and also LSK can be the watchdog in terms of pulling some of those professional job associations and forums that Mao Day are referred to. Where are they? They should stand to be counted. So nikimalizia, what I would like to say ni kwamba all of us here are hurting. And irrespective of where we live, hata kama unaishi majuu ama Marekani ama wherever it is, we are also supporting our families. So we know exactly how much those things are. So at the end of the day, mimi nataka kuomba kuwa, the question I have for you, Akili, ni kwamba, where do we go from here? Vijana wamefanya kazi yao. Wamesema no dialogue, hawataki hiyo, so hatutawalazimisha with dialogue, but where do we go from here? What are some of the low-hanging fruit right now? Hatuna cabinet, it was dissolved. Lakini ma-PSS bado wako. Where do we go from here? I do not want to belabor the point, but I believe one of the things that I've said as a parting shot as I learned, ni kwamba, when you go through all these spaces ambao kuna watu wengi, the other day ile ya Miguna, it had almost about 1 million, and other places, which is good. But are we harnessing, are we putting together this material? There are experts among us who can actually store this data. Manake, this information is very important for somebody, some interns, some JPOs can go through and sieve through and look at priorities in terms of what can be handled almost immediately. Thank you very much. Na nawashukuru sana for giving me the mic. Truly appreciate. Lakini pia naomba watu wasizungumze for so long. Wapi. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. We can keep it 2 minutes each of us for those of you who have the mic, so that we ensure that we collect as many views as possible. I have Isaac. Isaac, if you have the microphone, kindly proceed. Isaac, are you there? If Isaac is not there, Elijah. Elijah Sang.
And Wakili Manwa, what I'm going to do, I'm going to drop so that nafasi yangu inachukuliwa na mtu mwingine. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Rosemary. Thank you. We appreciate.
Yes, my name is
Elijah, you can proceed. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for giving me this chance. Currently I'm in Somalia. I've worked in Iraq and I've worked in Afghanistan. So my only point which I want to express is peace. Because one time, I must say I was a soldier. And if I was a soldier, when you people bash somebody called a soldier, it feels bad that these people are also human beings. We are happy of the democracy that is going on in Kenya right now. It is giving us light. It is giving us even a name where we are. Are these soldiers our brothers, sisters, or relatives to an extent that we bash and we abuse in such a way? I was all of us were on social media and we were watching what is going on. And I tend to ask myself if, as lawyers, you are biased. Because humanity means to protect all people. Soldiers are human beings. Though they are in government, though you can say they're in government, but they are human beings. Before I went to let's say military, I was in university and I studied. And what happened is the training that soldiers get is not the same when he gets in and when he gets out. So let us get some talks that cannot ignite some egos that can damage our country. I've heard somebody in Norway talking about having a demonstration, maandamano in Kenya. If we need to follow law and we need to follow what constitution says, maandamano is accepted in Kenya, is in law, and it is meant to be licensed that you start from somewhere to somewhere, and from this time to this time. It should be peaceful. So it's like I'm also thinking about that lady whose shoe rack was burnt, and she had to go and repair it for 40,000 or to 60,000. Who is representing this lady? There is a lady who dropped from second floor, the ground, and he broke her leg. Who is representing this lady? Up to 14 million business. Who is representing that guy? So my problem is, let's forge a way forward for a country. Let's not damage the country the way it is. I yearn for peace. Where we are is not peaceful at all. And if at all some of you can be taken around to these countries like Somalia, you will cry. You will cry and ask yourself, is Kenya peaceful? And I must say like this, as a trained person, let's learn to do a civic duty by educating our people how to demonstrate. Because I have a gun with a bullet, and you're throwing to me a stone. And those two people are Kenyans. One has a stone, one has a gun. So my point is, let's love our country. Those who are in America, educate us how we can do mandaman, peaceful mandaman. And one time I will try to go to court and be represented by maybe Faith Odhiambo. That how can a soldier or a police be protected? Does he has any right, or does she has any right? That person who has destroyed, who has his whole properties gone, does he or she has right? That's my point. Otherwise, I'm pleased to be here, and I will continue listening to you people, and let's have peace in our country. Guys, enjoy in Kenya. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elijah, for your contribution. I think I first want to appreciate the fact that you're one of the men and women, one of the men this country has sent out to protect the sovereignty of this state. We haven't had a soldier speak on this forum, but it's important to know that as the Law Society, we have been at the forefront fighting for the reforms within the police.
that court order that the, and it's not just the conmen, it's the members of parliament in the legislature, it's some of the cabinet secretaries, it's the arrogance they talk to. Madam LSK chair lady, do you remember when a member of parliament will pull up a weapon, like what you guys call a gun, and put it out there and is holding it and showing it to the people? With impunity, there are laws on when a concealed, we think in terms of impunity in this country called Kenya. How low? My heart bleeds because of somebody who's just spoken, and he's a soldier. I believe that justice, impunity should be ripped out of our country. Corruption should be, look, I don't even know how much I can emphasize impunity and corruption, two most important. Like, we need to chop this. I will sacrifice anything to see that impunity and corruption is pulled out of care because of what I went through. My mother, I'm an orphan. My father died, my mother died. I had to go through a very painful life going through school. I could not get bursary because the rich, the children of the rich, were taught corrupt, they'll get all the bursary. I'll struggle. I'll do any job to make sure I raise some little income. And that income, I'll pay my college fees. I was a straight A student. I'll pay my college fees, send some money to my mother to survive, and send some money to even pay for my sister's school fees. Life was terrible. Life was hard. I do not want, today, I stand here and the technology has provided us opportunity for people like me to tell our stories and say that I do not want the next generation, children of the next generation, to go through what some of us went through. I know I'm not alone. There are a lot of people in this space who are listening, and they have even worse stories to tell than me. But today, I'm proud to say that, one, thanks to God, I'm in a better opportunity place in terms of um, and I'm able to give back. This is my way of giving back. And I want to challenge everyone in the diaspora, those who have a story like mine, or even if you're not in the diaspora, you need to use this opportunity to give back. It's not about financial giving back, it's about telling your story and sticking and helping to make sure that the true change is brought to Kenya. Kenya is on the path. After this is a moment in time. This is a transformation moment in time for Kenya. Kenya will never be the same again. I want to see a day when people run away from being members of parliament if they do not believe they have the interest of the people at heart. They should leave it. Today, people go to parliament to get is true servant leader.
supposed to exist in the years to come. So our children are likely to be affected by all the decisions that are made by the persons in leadership today. So my first point of observation would be the fact that I'd go on specific issues regarding the killings that have recently happened. Well, the police could be said to be fully to blame, or the security forces, but there are persons who are also likely to go and shield under to appear like they are working with the police, but they're not the police. And these are persons who have served in the KDF, former KDF persons, former police officers who serve as bodyguards, private security, and even goons. Now, these are persons who probably were in those skirmishes, those protests, and because they were dressed in civilians, they are free because they know how to use firearms. They are free to shoot at anyone. And because it's not easy to account on them and get hold of them, those crimes continue. So it's probably better if we have recordings of these persons who are shooting, or persons who are seen holding those guns at the parliament office, parliament grounds, to see whether they're actually persons in service, or persons who are civilians or former police security force, former security officers who chose to attack unarmed civilians, and in their ways they were like protecting their bosses. The prohibited the use of firearms. There is no right to shoot any announcement. And as recent as this month, 5th of July, the IG of police and the Attorney General's office moved to the Court of Appeal to reverse that judgment because they want to get the right to shoot. Now, the right to shoot, that section B of the 6th schedule of the National Police Act. Now, in Kenya, we have a very good legal framework whereby all our laws are online. So we just Google that section B of the National Police Act, 6th schedule. And there were sections that prohibit, that gave directions to use firearms. And the court in that judgment pronounced against that position. So now that the AG is out and now that the IGP is out, they're still moving to get the directions to institute an appeal and be allowed to shoot persons in case of whatever. So we must be vigilant as Kenyans that the right to shoot, to kill, or to maim, it should be well guarded, and there should be very good reasons as to why that should be happening. Now, on the same vein, there is these persons, that's the IG, again, they have resigned, and the CS Interior, they have resigned. And this is the persons who are supposed to be liable for all those killings. Now, killings that are directly related to the police officers other than the other persons in the mix. Now, these persons, in my view, they should be pursued even after leaving office. And not just these two officers. The persons in the divisions, the persons in the regional commanders, all police force units. Every place that had an issue, all those bosses, they should be held accountable for the lost lives that have happened. We should not allow Kenyans' lives to just go like that just because they were on the streets protesting about something. And if it's to make arrests for persons who are probably being violent and all that, that should be the order of the day, and not just to kill persons at will because someone has a monopoly of violence. It shouldn't be the rule of law. Again, related to that, there is what now, and related to that is what happened in the US, the defunding of the police whenever they breached the human rights on killing persons, as the case of George Floyd. There is what, again, which is similarly related to that, there is this good conduct that you're supposed to get clearance for as Kenyans at the DCI. Now again, the parliament in the year 2022 April, it passed a law that no Kenyan, whenever they're seeking jobs and employment, should move to pay the 1,050 shillings to the DCI. The law prohibits that collection, but impunity has been continuing for the last 2 years. The 1,050 shillings has to be paid on e-citizen for you to collect your good conduct. Now, the government is supposed to fund DCI to do its work because that's the law. So as LSK, as all Kenyans, we need to check DCI to do what they're supposed to do. And that illegal collection of 1,050 shillings should not happen. Because the law as it is, as clearly stated, there should be no collections by public entities on the issuance of the good conduct. And this more so affects the youth, persons who don't have monies to pay the help. Help have complied with that law. The CRBs are yet to comply with that law. The EACC does not charge. Now, KRA TCC, the tax compliance certificate is not charged, but the DCI have continued to collect those funds. Now, the question of refunds in the future, that we will revisit one day. But for now, we should be alive to the fact that the law states that there should be no payment to the DCI as regards that police good conduct certificate. Now, away from that, I want to move to what has been happening, the issues of the sectors, education and health sector. Well, poor service delivery has been by design. And our children, our future, our healthcare system is being affected by that continuous underfunding. And even now, yesterday, the Speaker of the National Assembly has advised the committees to restructure or probably slash further the budgets of some of these key ministries. That's education and the health sector. By about 12 billion from the health sector, from 127 billion to now 112. And about 12 billion again from the education sector. Now, this slashing of the budget on these priority sectors should not happen. So we should be more vigilant that these sectors, they should be having more funding. And also, let's probably shine some more light on the health sector. It should be about 15% minimum of the national budget as per the Abuja Declaration of 2001. Now, 127 billion, then reduce on the supplementary by another 12, that comes to 113 billion. That means about less than, it's very little, like about 3% of the national budget towards the health sector. Now, this is just on the national government. So this lack of prioritization of the public sector is going to affect us, is going to affect the quality of education, is going to affect the quality of healthcare that you're going to aspire to. And even now, this spirit of universal healthcare becomes a mirage, just like a good salesmanship lingo, whereby no one knows what it means because no one wants to push to achieve that target as per what was stated in the Vision 2030 by Kibaki. It's not going to happen as long as we don't want to do it. So money has to follow that spirit for us to realize that goal. And in my view, the future is public. Public services strengthening is what we require, especially on the sectors that are very critical, sectors that affect the incomes of what we collect and take home. Because if you don't have enough money, you cannot afford private insurance, you cannot afford private school. And the more so we are like charged up as middle class, and we want to say we want to take our children to middle school, to private school, we want to take our children to probably our family members to the private hospitals, we cannot sustain that kind of lifestyle. One day you're hit up with a catastrophe and you have yourself admitted in hospital privately, you cannot afford to foot bills for 3 months as a middle class. That's why we have to work to strengthen the public healthcare sector. So that lack of prioritization should not happen. Now, away from that, we'll now move into SHIF. We're tired of reforming the old one. Now, NHIF has been there since 1966. It has assurance officers. So whatever goes is, you'll probably have to go to the parliamentary website, National Assembly. Look at the committee report on the recent investigation of 2023 on the frauds done by persons surrounding and engaging NHIF. The reports are all there. Look at the histories, look at the timelines. The money is lost, how the systems work, and the failures and the challenges and how they're proposing to shift into the future. Now that shift into the future happened because there was a 3-judge bench ruling that stopped the implementation of the matching allowance. You remember that time when we had FKE going to court and the employers had to match up the contribution. Now a stalemate appeared in that September 2022. And that meant those persons now were like gagged. They could not know whether to proceed. It was the time after election. There was a Supreme Court election case that the judgment to continue the case. But the case now was rendered dead come January 2023, when they said, let's abandon ship, let's add a few things, infuse, and let's move on now with the future. Now, this future that we're moving to, it is good, yes, but it's some patchy rebranding. In legal engineering, it would have just been better to just reform, amend the old act, or finish that, fast track that three-judge bench on the premise of why should the employers match up contributions to augment the underfunding in the sector, in that insurance health financing. But that did not happen. So we abandoned ship and went into the 2.75 spirit under the SHIF. Our Constitution, Article 43(2) says everyone has a right to health care, emergency care, without any conditions. The state should meet that through our taxes. But now SHIF comes and edits, let's say now the Gen Z language, edits the law, the Constitution, by saying that it must be conditional now. That if you don't pay into SHIF, you will not get any public service in any sector. And you will also not get any emergency services as per the Health Act and as per the constitutional provisions which are supreme. Now that illegality, we are lucky, we are happy because we participated in that court case. That law has now been unionized. But again, the courts are also playing another game. They're suspending Article 2 of the Constitution. Now, anything that is illegal, anything that is unconstitutional, cannot be given more life to exist because we want to probably mark time and rethink ourselves, check ourselves to see whether now we can reinvert that. So that's section 24, 25, 26 that prevented Kenyans from getting emergency care was rendered illegal and unconstitutional pronto. And it was not part of that 45 days leave extended because that should not happen. Again, the other absurdity was the aspect of persons who are not employed. How do they pay into the fund? There was a means testing instrument, an economic tool to probably use the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. It's a very experimental thing, and in my view, it's going to be really difficult to how to get persons who are not employed covered. And now add the other spirit that if you're not part of the fund, you're not contributing, you get no benefits. So we were like creating a law that will not benefit the poor people, the elderly, the orphans. Those ones, they are already covered by the law under the National Treasury on those who are not employed and they have no means. You'll judge them on the number of meals they take, the sizes of the TV, the clothes, whatever they have in the household. Again, some of them are still living with their parents, despite the fact they're over like 28, 25 to 28. So that absurdity, we really need to think collectively how to cure about that and either use our general taxes to cover that exposed category of persons. Well, young people don't have many health issues, and the state can consider to cover these people as a block, just based as a means of trying to safeguard them as they go on to make the livelihoods. Now, the other absurdity was outsourcing of public funds. Now, SHIF Act was very creatively done. The funds are collected by us, ourselves, we contribute to that pool. But the funds are going to be administered by a private system of persons who tender and become like the overseers in the different zones of as per the law had been drafted. Now, this will be like, they're not insurance companies. They're like insurance agents, but again, they're not like insurance agents. They're like health management organizations, again, not like health management organizations. They're like intermediaries between the fund pool, which is the SHA authority, with the SHIF funds, the PHC fund, and the ECCF, emergency care funds. And then you have a go-between person who is a private provider, an entity, like now what manages the TSC and the police service system. So these entities will be rebranded, so many of them, and they'll be like the gatekeepers of where the monies would go. Now, remember, these are persons who control the channels. If the channels are controlled by private sector, persons are not probably accountable to us because the spirit of that was, there's a lot of money that's being lost in the public sector. So let's try and privatize. Right? This is a very strategic privatization tactic. You privatize claims payment to a private provider who's not an insurance, who does not follow any law, and it's only one statement in the Insurance Act that gives them authority to do that. So that was really clouded. That section 35 thereabout in the Chief Act, it really needed to go. And I'm happy. And so, and the laws were passed, and that was it. Within like 14 days, the bills became law. And here we are now today, 2 years, 1 year later plus, and the laws are suspended. We are happy, but the courts are playing a game of of suspending Article 2 about the constitutionality and how laws should be filtered. If the laws are finally made, the system of law, as per the Constitution, should filter such laws and not give them some leash of life as we try to recreate or reenact some of the sections that were found unconstitutional. So that should not happen. So as I finish, I want to say the future is public. We should all work together to champion the rule of law. And we champion the safeguard of public services because it's public services that buffer us whenever we're exposed out here. And let's strive to get a Kenya that works for all of us, the youth, the elderly, the children, and the retirees, everyone, the police, KDF, and all those people who are out here in the country. We have to make Kenya work for us. And if our leadership is not accountable, we must call out misgovernment, misadministration, any day, any day. It is our duty as per that.
Dudley, your mic is on.
Gonzo, floor is yours.
We can hear you. Dudley, you can assist with the next speakers.
Hello, can you hear me?
Quite
Yes,
clearly.
we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam President Faith Odhiambo of the LSK. Thank you very much also for the good job that you've been doing, especially during the period when people are still being abducted, and the job that all the LSK volunteer lawyers have been doing. We can see that right now we've made some little bit of achievements. We've seen heads roll a little bit, but I would just like to mention that we still need more concessions from the side of the executive. We have seen extrajudicial killings. We saw hooded men in parliament shooting at people who were only carrying placards and everything else. I would like to still mention that we need to still push more on that so that we can find out who these people are. We have these people brought to book, and we need to see police officers charged, the guys who shot. I understand that there are regulation established by the National Police Service Act. And I had a military or a police officer speak on the space, and I was a bit taken aback by his contribution, in which he was trying to urge us to go slow on matters of war and everything. And I was left wondering
what was this concept about the war and everything, and how we've never been in a place where Somalia is. As far as I've been concerned, we have no reason to compare Kenya at all with Somalia. I was born and I already found Somalia fighting. It has ever been a failed state all along. There is no serious similarity between Somalia and Kenya. Kenya has always been a progressive country, especially us who grew up during the Kibaki era. We did not see so much of the things that are happening in Somalia now. And I would like to remind each and every one of us that whatever we are getting in from the government now and from our current constitution is actually the bare minimum. The freedom of speech, the freedom of expression, the things that we are demanding from the government, it's not a favor that we are getting, that we should be fearing that there is likely to be a war. What kind of war? There can't be a war between a few government machineries and the citizens themselves who are just trying to exercise their right to express themselves and just to exercise their rights to be heard. And that is why in the new constitution, the name of the former Kenya Police Force was renamed to be a service, essentially for them to provide a service to the citizens and not to be at war with them. Also on the issue of property, do anything to a life that is lost. Once somebody dies, they have died. But the people who lost property can be compensated. They can still make more property. They can still work children for getting into parliament and demanding to be heard by their MPs. Then through their tax or the tax of their parents, again, you're going to repair the parliament. How then do you justify that property was lost or anything? Or that people ate food in parliament, people ate rice and beans, and all those foods have been bought by the taxpayers' monies. And therefore, there is no reason or justification whatsoever for the loss of life. And the speech by that police officer made me understand why police are still so much fascinated with killing people and shooting people. If that is still the reasoning, I think we need a lot of education in our police service, because it's not even a service. I think the name changed, but the police is still a force and a brutal force. And I think there will need so much education. If you compare with what happened in America in January 6th, I think 2021, when I think Biden won the election and he was supposed to be sworn in, and supporters of Donald Trump attacked is it Capitol Square, where the seat of power of the parliament is. We did not have even one case of anybody dying, and that was almost an act of insurrection, let alone this one of Kenya, whereby people were demanding the dropping of the finance bill, of the punitive finance bill. So I think the mentality of our police and all our military people, it takes me so much. It really shocks me if that is what they still think, and they tell us that as Kenyans we are enjoying. We are not enjoying. People have fought all through, ever since the time of 1992 or the Sabasabas, even before we were born. People were always fighting for what Kenyans have today. So we still need to keep on the fight. We still need the IBC reconstituted so that we can start the process of recalling the members of parliament who voted against what the citizens had instructed them. We need the leadership to start working for us and not to work for the appointing authority or party affiliations. Also, I had a concern on the Auditor General. The Auditor General does a good job at the end of the day. But normally I do wonder, is there a gap between what happens to the report of the Auditor General? Is it that I think the Auditor General presents this report to Parliament, but we never see action on the report, we just see that there's a report made on TV that the Auditor General pointed corruption in counties, in national government, but we do not see it picked up. I don't know whether it's supposed to be picked up by the DPP or after parliamentary committee also investigates. We just see those reports end up disappearing also. Then also I had a concern on the audit of the public debt, and I don't know if Madam President will correct me later on. It was my considered opinion that the Presidential Task Force on the audit of the debt should have proceeded, other than have the Auditor General audit the debt and release the report. Then we do not see so much happen to the Auditor General's report. It's like it's normally just goes to Parliament and just gathers that there. As I conclude, I'd like to urge each one of us to just keep on pushing. Let's push more. Let's just get more concessions from the government. Let's proceed with the pushing of the reconstitution of the IEBC so that we can begin the process of recalling the members of parliament who do not work for the people, so that as we move forward, we can have a government that works for us, and we can see more of common sense leadership in the government of Kenya. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gonza. We'll have Dr. Victor Kiplimo, followed by Mark. What Mark says. And perhaps if you could use 5 minutes, because I see there are a lot of requests on the mic. 5 minutes, Dr. Eric.
All right. Thank you so much for giving me this space. I don't have much submissions. First of all, I want to thank Law Society of Kenya, led by Faith Odhiambo. Thank you so much for not sleeping with the government. I know maybe by any chance the government tried to come and like be with their side, but thank you for being independent. Thank you so much. For those people, if you're present here and you voted for Faith, thank you so much. Secondly, I know what's happening in Kenya. It's so good. We want to make those seats not, we want to let us make these seats not, let us not make these seats for like for each and every, like nowadays you find people with good professions, they just want to leave their profession and join politics because they want to go and loot, because they know that's the only way to loot and be rich and just make your lineage be that of Kenyatta family. Like each and every politician, even now, the way Ruto does things is he wanted to loot. That's why he walks around the wall just to go and meet. Like the other day, he met Joe Biden. He wants just to pocket so that he be rich and his family be known all over the world for centuries. And that should not be the way. Secondly, I know most of the Gen Zs are in streets simply because they are educated and they are jobless. You know, the way Kenya is, we shouldn't be having a jobless Kenyan, because the amount of money that politicians do loot, if that amount is to be made, like if we are to make companies, for example, we can make lots of companies which will consume all the youth of this country, and no one will be jobless, because we have got farms, you know, we have got farms, we have got space in our country. If you can build industries, because I've come and discovered that in Kenya, we import many things. We import very fucking like stupid things which we can't be importing. Like even like things like diapers. We have cotton, we grow cotton, we can make our own companies and produce these things. And if we make companies, if we like for example, if we are to make companies, we will employ many people. Another thing is, let us make these seats. A time has come for we Kenyan people to make a minimum wage for our people, for our country. For example, there is no way a teacher will be earning 20,000, politician is earning 1 million, a doctor by profession, a doctor doing surgeries, being paid like fucking 200,000, and a fucking politician is paid 1 million, that doesn't make sense at all. So we have to, there is a lot, there's a lot of messes in our country. I don't know, it's only that. Thank you.
I hope you can hear me.
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'll speak in regards to a little bit about the movement, and maybe to shed a little bit of light on what we should be.
That's okay. You can use 5 minutes. You'll be followed by COM1.
Dudley, who is the next speaker? And just to respond to the speaker who talked about the public debt. Some level of credibility even as we get involved, which I agree we should have even more on the public debt, amongst other topics that have been raised. And we'll get also different experts from different sectors to also speak on this and raise the current status and how different professionals can plug in, and what kind of process would we want members of the public to understand where we are with the public debt. I saw Redemptor with your hand up, then Mark.
Thank you
Let's
very
keep it 2
much.
minutes. Yes.
I'll be very quick because my passion is extrajudicial killings and the impacts of these killings in society. And the person who has triggered me to want to talk is someone who said he's a soldier. And ametuanzisha vita ya kisaikolojia, which is what our generation was beaten up with. The guilt tripping of peace is very important. And I think justice is really more important than peace, because when you don't have justice, you have no peace. In an ideal situation, not ideal, the common situation where people know they're soldiers, like America, every time they meet with a soldier, they say, thank you for your service. And so I would have thought if he was a policeman, he would have talked about maandamano, because he asked a question, how do you do maandamano? And then the psychological warfare is where even the head of state, and what I think we need to address as lawyers, as psychologists, as sociologists, journalists, is the narrative. There is no justification in the world for extrajudicial killings, and we should never entertain that conversation. Anybody who comes and shows us the poster boy of destruction of property should not be entertained when we want change. I have seen the fathers of devolution here. The people we say thank you for your service in Kenya, sadly, I'm saying sadly is because of the brokenness, is human rights defenders, legal organizations who give us legal aid, because they're always putting off fires. We will not have a problem trusting the army if their allegiance is to the country. But what we have is police forces, they are not services in these instances of Mandamano, who are only loyal to regimes or political lineage. I'll tell you I'll make it very quick, a very short story. When the inquest of Stephanie Mora happened in 2021, it had taken 4 years. The courts were locked down because of Corona. We were 7 people in that court. And I think the legal people, the magistrate, the judge, and were about 4. We were only 2 citizens in that, and 1 media person. And when the magistrate the judge was reading the ruling, he said it is certain that a policeman shot Stephanie Mora. If anybody wants, they can inbox. I'll find the ruling and I can share it, because it is relevant for the psychological warfare they beat us with, telling us that we need, we say justice is our shield and defender, and justice should be a very good defender. So good that we don't think of the army being with us. And I dare anybody who's in power today to allow the police to go to the streets without any instructions. And they will see how the citizens will bond with the police. So if someone asks, how do you do mandamano? Is you don't give instructions to do harm. My story is that when the judge read made his ruling, he said that he's very certain that a police officer shot Stephanie Mora. But he gave something called a blue code of conduct, where police, for their self-preservation, protect each other. So it's a code of silence. And the reason I'm bringing this up, I want to tell you a story that we can use to educate the police, that we are not blind to the thing that citizens don't harm police. Because if they did, they would be outnumbered, like Boniface Mwangi says sometimes. And the story I want to leave with you is that on the day Stephanie Mora was shot, when the OCS of, Mudaiga, came to Madare to confirm the incidents, the mob came, thousands and thousands of people. That was not captured in the inquest, but I know the story because I interacted with the aftermath. And when the policeman was accosted by these thousands and thousands of people, it was the father of the child who was still lying on the ground with a bullet through her heart that protected that OCS. Because the mob would have lynched. He would have let the mob lynch him. And the injustice of why we have to change narratives is when it was the turn of that OCS to return the favor to Mr. Mukaya, he chose to stick to the blue code of conduct and not disclose who that police officer was. So I do not want anybody to come and beat us up again when we're having a discussion about extrajudicial killings and then bring the issue of destruction of property. It is not fair on a day like this when we are trying to make sense of how do you justify with political rhetoric, with guilt tripping, with telling us war is very bad. You create war when you have unjust systems. So I will also take this opportunity to thank the fathers of devolution whom I've seen and who might hear me say, thank you for your service. This constitution is being tested in the hands of the wrong person, the person who has no regard for rule of law, then extrajudicial killings will happen. And I pray that this comes to a stop. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak again. And you can see I'm very passionate about the impact of killings in our society. We are raising a very angry generation, and the Gen Alpha will carry the pain of the Gen Zs if we don't do right by them. And that's what I'm pleading the ruling class. You have to do right by this generation. You guilt tripped us with religion. You
Thank
made
you,
us feel
Ridanta.
like
Let's
the
have
Lord has,
Mr.
thank you,
Komwanza
thank
and
you.
then let's talk law, followed by final liberator. Komwanza, you have the floor.
Thank you, Churchley. Thank you, Dudley, and the panel and all the listeners. One, I'd begin with saying that today I went to Quarry, where they were retrieving some of those bodies. And what I saw there was pretty much disgusting. It should not repeat in this country. Two, thank you so much, Madam President Faith, for all the decisions you've made and your leadership of this moment. I think it was a long way coming. Thank you so much. I very much laud what you've done for the society and the country. Now, today I came by a book. It's called The Leaderless Revolution. And in there, they were talking about participatory governance in the 21st century. The book, The Leaderless Revolution, is written by one gentleman called Kandros, and is talking about how ordinary people will change society in the 21st century and how they'll take back power. It's a book that I'll encourage everybody to read. Now, about participatory governance, in Article 10 of the Constitution of Kenya, we know that public participation is one of the principles of governance, one of the values of our country. And it's because the current political class and leadership does not understand that. That is why we find ourselves in this situation we are in. We had a parliament that had all our protests. Everything we were saying we do not want the Finance Bill 2024. But they still went ahead to pass it, and people broke into parliament, and chaos erupted in the country. People were killed. In fact, it's suspected that some of the bodies in the Kware were those people who died in the Githurai massacre. So how do we entrench this public participation? While we are seeking solutions for the current stalemate in the country, I think we need to look at developing systems to keep leaders accountable. We can leverage on the power of technology, and that is what Kandro's advises when he talks about leaderless revolution in the 21st century, because citizens can use communication platforms like Twitter, Facebook, to mobilize and organize around an idea and present a very formidable force that can counter any act of bad governance. So, Madam President, with your leadership, I would like that you take the bull by its horns. And as we're having this conversation in the country, we look at grand corruption and how it has affected governance and the well-being of citizens. And everybody who might have stolen and put us in this crisis to be held accountable. If they are deceased, then some of their properties can be nationalized or sold off to take care of part of our debt. Number two, we could look at leveraging technology. Some people have proposed using blockchain-based systems to provide electro technology that we can use in the right time. So I wouldn't exhaust all the ideas here. It's good that you are listening. We'll keep this conversation going. But the two most important takeaways that I would propose here is that first, let's build systems for participatory governance. And two, let's base it on technology that is tamper-proof, that cannot be interfered with. And let every professional society, every professional, do their duty in helping our country move forward. Thank you so much, and God bless all of you.
Thank you so much, Komanza. I give the floor to Let's Talk Law, followed by Final Liberator.
Thank you, Dudley, and thank you, Madam President, for having this space. My name is Advocate Dora Msengeti. I'm the founder of Let's Talk Law Kenya and Msengeti Advocates. So I'll try to keep this very brief. I want to highlight three things. The issue of KRA and data privacy, issue to touch a bit on conflict of interest bill, and then finish off with the shift story, because I spent months on research on the shift story, did articles, did threads, did a YouTube video, so I won't talk much about that except a few things. So first, the issue I'm bringing up, the reason I'm bringing up the issue about KRA and data privacy is because I want to highlight something to everyone, and that is this government, even though sometimes it looks like it's doing things haphazardly, they have a plan and an end goal in sight, which is not very favorable for us as citizens. Using the example of KRA, I don't know how many people know that in 2021, KRA officially started something called social media monitoring. If you look it up, you will find they continued doing that through 2021, continued perfecting it in 2022, where now they started incorporating technology, AI, blockchain, and all of that to really hone in on monitoring people who are compliant and or non-compliant with, your tax payments, according to what they say. In 2023, they introduced the paramilitary trained, what were they called? Revenue service assistants, who were basically KRA officers that were empowered to come to your place of business and ask you a bunch of questions to see whether you are compliant when it comes to tax issues. And these were military trained, remember. In 2024, they wanted to pass through the finance bill provisions that would have given KRA the authority, the power to literally have access to almost, if not all, of your personal data. So they start monitoring you in 2021. They start incorporating technology to monitor you many different ways in 2022. They bring in military trained officers and give them the same powers as police officers. I did a trade on this also in 2023. And then in 2024, they try to get access to all of your data. Do you see a pattern? Do you see how they're going? If you can connect the dots, then you can see and understand how this government is operating and where they're trying to go. So any move they make, you need to look to see what has been done before, and you need to be able to think, where are they trying to head with this? In what way are they intending to oppress us ultimately with this move? When you go to the conflict of interest bill, we've had a lot of talk about, especially after the Senate did their voting to amend some sections. Now, I have spent a couple of days going through the entire bill, and I found some sections that I thought were quite nice, especially because the laws that we had before were not as thorough. But I have only just started going through the amendments that the Senate made. Now, just from the conflict of interest bill itself, I thought there are sections that we should be aware of so that we can know where and why to make noise when the amended bill goes from Senate to the National Assembly, because I think there are sections that were amended and or deleted by the Senate that should remain there for the sake of accountability. The conflict of interest bill contains a lot of provisions, and it is founded on Article, I want to say 75, Chapter 6 of the Constitution, where it says that a public officer, as they go on about their duties, should do so in a way that they avoid conflict of interest between, their private interest and the interest of the public. Now, the conflict of interest bill explains what conflict of interest is in a more thorough way than the previous acts, the Public Officers Ethics Act and the Leadership and Integrity Act, and it really gives more details. But however, there are provisions that I think we should note. The first one of those provisions being that in the conflict of interest bill, these people will have to be making declarations about their wealth. If you remember correctly, some days ago, Murkomen, before he became jobless, had said something about having a lifestyle audit bill or something of the sort. And I thought that was quite ridiculous, because that is something that has already been covered in the conflict of interest bill, where when they come into let's say if it's a member of parliament or something, because the act covers public officers, both appointed and elected. If they come into office, when they come into office, they have to make a declaration of, sorry, is that my time up?
Yeah, just wind it up.
Okay. They have to make a declaration of their income when they come into office, and this whatever they have to make a declaration of is in the Schedule 2 of the Act, and they have to make a periodical declaration every 2 years. And even when they leave office, they make a final declaration. There is also provisions there about public collections, aka Harambes. The president recently gave a directive if this law had already been implemented since it was introduced in April 2023, then there would already be a provision there preventing them from holding harambes, using even their social media. It has covered that. There are a lot of provisions there that we need more education about so that we can be aware of. And even with the shift that has been declared unconstitutional now, and I don't know why, like Wakili Daktari said, why they are giving the government leeway to correct something that has already been declared wrong. But there are, as they say, they are going to do public participation. There are things there that we need to be aware of so that we can say no to them. We missed them the first time around. Is the sections that said we can't access healthcare unless we are paid up to the shift, and it's already been made mandatory to be a shift member, and the sections that say that you cannot access essential government services from the national and county level if you're not paid up. Now they're saying it's only unconstitutional up to the point where you would be denied emergency services. But can you think of all the essential services that you may require from your county or national government that you would be stopped from getting if you haven't made your payments to the shift? I think it should extend beyond just getting medical services. And then there's the other thing of, in that same Social Health Insurance Act, as much as they had said that the government is supposed to be responsible for covering the payments for the extremely poor, the indigent, they had also sneaked in a provision there where they said that those who are not able to keep up with their payments have what are the words, financing opportunity, something like that, from the government. Only later this year, the Ministry of Health released an infographic about the Social Health Authority, and they were saying that people will be able to borrow from cooperatives and the Hustler Fund so that you can make your payments to the shift. So this is what they meant by giving people financing opportunities, that they were going to make you take loans from the Hustler Fund to make payments to the shift after they have made it mandatory for you to be a member to the shift and not get any health services or essential services from the government if you don't you're not paid up. So there are still sections in there that we need to take note of. Watch my YouTube video, read through the highlights, the threads, they're all there. We've been sharing legal information since 2020, 2021, and we'll continue to do so. As I finish, I have one request. There are many people who are trying to educate people about the laws as they come up. Someone like me, I do all this and I'm one person. So this is a request to Madam President and everyone here who's listening who might be interested. If you can help in any way so that we can have, if you're willing to work, I don't have resources to pay, but if you're willing to help with research, with presentation, with any way, I do this out of passion. Madam President, if there's a program that can come from LSK to support those like me that are doing this, we would gladly take it up. And that said, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for the opportunities to speak. Let's keep going. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Let's talk law. I give the floor to Final Liberator. It'll be followed by Mark and Okat. Final Liberator.
Thank you for the opportunity. You can hear me?
We can hear you and you have 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you. I need to base my points or argument on the principle of cause and effect. We need to keep that in mind as I deliberate. Whatever we are dealing with at the moment, bodies being retrieved from feeds and quarries, many deaths, maiming and injuries which have occurred, which I pass my sincere condolences to those who have lost their lives. These are the effects, and they run with them. forgetting or leaving behind without just to pick it up from what happened last month, is that the reason as to why, as a country, we are into this, the cause was an exorbitant and a reasonable finance bill, which was passed by Parliament and taken for assent by the President. We need to note that a budget, a finance bill, a budget of a country, it's not done by the members of the country. We need to note that. It's done by Treasury. And to be specific, a budget for public entities is usually meant by procurement professionals. Procurement professional. The moment the various sectors of the government, agencies, arms, the moment they come up with the budget of what of what they need to spend or do in the next fiscal year, then that the budget is given for to Treasury for the procurement guys. Once they have come with the bill of requirement, then it's upon the procurement professionals who are supposed to do market survey, market research, to come up with the pricing to determine the prices or the amount which will be spent in the next fiscal budget. And then this is given to members of Parliament so that they can deliberate and all that. And then, having said that, I'm going to my other moderator, Mr. Mano or Lawyer Mano. There is a colleague who spoke earlier on with regards to professional bodies. And what Mr. Mano told him in his response, he told him that for professional bodies, he quoted some of you, the LSK, the medics, those likes of professional bodies, they are doing their part. And he said that you guys, the other professionals, if you feel that your profession is not doing now, kindly go and talk to them so that they can pull up their socks. I'm happy that Madam Faith, who has been very robust, she's listening. That procurement professionals, 70% of the Republic of Kenya budget is expended through a procurement process. And if you see members of the citizen come here and tell you as a vibrant professional body that indeed we have a problem with other professional bodies, and then you just tell them go, then it means that we are trying to say that we are not keen. We can deliberate on so many things, but most of these, even the sacking of the CSEs and what have you, and whatever actions will follow, those are effect. The cause is that the 70% of public funds which are expended through procurement processes, and by procurement processes, this is where all the monies and lifestyles, all the corruption, bribes, and each and everything we are seeing happening, and the extortion and everything, The 70% which is being exalted, it means that that's
Thank you
where
so much.
let,
We
let, let, let
can
me let,
move to Mark and Okach. Molly will come after that. Mark, I give you the floor. You'll be followed by Okach and Molly.
All right. Thank you. So I'll touch on three things. The first one is the debt situation. The second is on political representation. And the third one will be on the professional bodies. So I'm glad that Madam President actually brought up the issue of how we are addressing the matter of debt. And I think the conversation needs to shift from how can we pay this debt and to actually discussing what are the avenues that we have not to pay this debt. A few years ago, about a decade ago, Somalia were the beneficiaries of a debt forgiveness program. In addition to that, there are also a group of Indian farmers who successfully sued the IFC a few years ago. So there is precedent to establish that this debt should not be paid. Because if we look at it critically, it would be as if we are in a membership in a neighborhood association, and the president of that neighborhood association borrowed money to build roads and to install drainage. But still, 10 years later, we have no roads and we have no drainage. So why is it that we, the citizens of Kenya, are suffering because Murkomen wanted to buy a Rolex? It makes no sense. There is no logic underpinning that under law, under economics, under finance, none whatsoever. So I think as a country, the next step that we should be preparing to take is tabling a lawsuit against the IMF, because we all know these are people with degrees from the best institutions in the world, with 10, 20, 30 years of practice in finance, economics, accounting, all of these things. There is no way that they loaned that money to the government of Uhuru and Ruto, not knowing that none of these projects were being done. So for the representatives of LSK on this call, if that is something that is in the process or is something that you feel you are able to lead on, I think that would be a great next step, not just for us, but in terms of precedent of what can be done at a global and at a continental level. The next thing that I'll speak about is the issue of political representation that we have in this country. Now, it's no secret that we were a colonial state, and as a result of the colonialism that we faced, the duties and the responsibilities of those who occupy political posts have been subverted and become subject to a lot of misinterpretation over time, which is why so many people think that the role of an MP is, organize a harambe, pay my school fees, and so on and so forth, to the point where we've become very overrepresented as a country. We have more than 300 MPs, 47 senators and governors, over 2,000 MCAs. That alone is over 2,500 political representatives, not counting how many people are employed in civil service. And that in and of itself is a problem, because when you ask yourself, how is it that Mike Mushiri, an influencer, was able to get more civic education than these 2,500 political representatives? So with the coming of the next government, I think this is also something that should be in the works. We need to significantly trim that load that we have politically. And it should be done by government. I've heard the lady from Let's Talk Law asking for someone to help her to do civic education, and she's doing a great job. And so is everyone else who is trying to do so at this point in time. But that should be a public function. It should have been, and it should be moving forward. And I think moving forward, any kind of political representative at any level should be tasked with making sure that a translated version of every bill that is going to be passed in Parliament should be available to the people that they represent. So if you represent someone in Kiambu, it should be available in the language that they speak there. And then lastly, with the professional bodies, I'll be quick. It's no secret that very many of them are in bed with the government. I applaud Madam President for rejecting the call to be on that task force, but we also need to talk about the remuneration issue for young professionals in Kenya. It's no secret that a lot of people are struggling. And the reason why this is so important is because the right or the capacity to fight for your rights, to protest, these things are privileges. Over the past few weeks, we've had maybe 10 different protests. There's not very many Kenyans who can miss 10 days of work within the space of 1 month and still have enough money to pay their rent and to feed themselves. And so to the professional bodies, you owe it to the future population and to the current one to ensure that people are remunerated fairly and that they do not face roadblocks in progressing in their careers. And I'll close it there. Thank you for the mic.
Thank you, Dudley. Dudley, are you there? Can anyone hear me?
Yes,
I
we
can
can.
hear you. You can.
I think Dudley has dropped. Perhaps we can have two last interventions before I call upon the president to give her closing remarks. I'll give this microphone to Okach. Okach, are you there? Safe? Is it safe? Safe, you can hear me. You have the microphone. Kindly proceed. You have 2 minutes.
Yes,
We
Manwa,
can
can you
reduce
hear
the
me?
period to 2 minutes, kindly. Yes.
Okay. Okay, first of
Thank
all, I
you.
would like to send my condolences to every family who has lost his beloved ones. I mean, to be honest, Kenya is at a critical juncture in its life. Huh? It's a very sad situation of what we are seeing. But all this has been a problem coming in through different kind of angles. Because if you look at the current government setup itself, starting from the budget to even the professional bodies, I mean, to be honest, the jobs that they do is, I mean, terrible. Because wacha tuanze hata na budget. The amount I think that we have on the budget is around 3.9 trillion, if I'm not wrong, or 4 trillion. Out of 4 trillion, I think 10% only goes to counties and 90% is in the national government. So if we go by that, the lootings that happen inside counties is terrible in itself. And this sets the precedence for national government to be doing the same thing as well. So I mean, in totality, first of all, if we start with counties, we need to get rid of this nonsense. Devolution has been a curse in this nation. Wacha tuanzie hapo. As of MPs, we can see clearly what's going on with them. Saizi wanateseka, there is a problem here and there. We need constitutional amendments, capital punishment iletwe, wacha watu wafungwe, wacha watu wauliwe, so that we have a country that respects the rule of law. You pussy where people, you can't be having, I don't know, 4 million acres, another person. And then, to be honest, kwanza hii law firm, it's good that, Madam President, you are the one who is deliberating, and you're moderating this thing. Law firms have been used to sanitize. Yeah, in fact, if anything, I think money laundering majority inapitia law firms. Let's say the truth. If you look at some parastatals, pesa zote zinapitia law firms. Majority of the looting. Out of the 9.2 trillion that we have borrowed since 2012, I can swear close to half, aside from ile yenye imelipa ma salaries, half of that money that was borrowed has been laundered, or the conduits have been through law firms. So I don't know how we're going to deal with such things going forward. Na kama ni counties, can we reduce them to 10? Then kama tatutatua devolution nzima. But we need to have a conversation around this thing. 10, Northeastern mbili, Rift Valley mbili, Coast maybe mbili, Central moja, Western moja, Nyanza moja, Nairobi wacha ikuwe national government hiyo. And then hapa Eastern pia mbili, 10 imeisha. Why should we have 47, I don't know, county governments? And then on top of it, you senators 47 and then nominated women reps. sijui, I don't know, MCAs karibu 1,000 and then every county has ministry of 10, 20, 30 ministries or something like that, or I don't know. You know, you have livestock and fisheries in areas hata sijui hata maji zinakaaje. Hizi vitu ni hasira tupu tu inaleta, because I've seen some of these people, the amount that they've stashed abroad is shocking. And in the same nation, you have people who haven't even eaten, I think, for 2 days or 3 days. We can't have such a country. Nchi ambayo haijielewi. So we need to kidogo saizi is the fact that we are on this renaissance mode. We need to move this country in a different trajectory. The trajectory that we have set for people has been terrible. Going forward, I think we will have people who will have the public service at heart. People will join in to serve the people genuinely and not to come here as a commercial venture. We have had MPs who were broke the other day. Today they have a chopper. Another one is driving, I don't know, Lexus 600, another one a G-Class. And they move in such big cars. For what reason? Ya kazi gani? And these people, you can clearly see they have not made any industry hawajatengeneza kitu yoyote ambao you can attest the money to. So we are really, tunacheza jamani, within 10 years of this constitution, Kenya is on its knees. We are in a coma. Hatuwezi endelea nayo. Constitutional amendments is a must. Let's get rid of all these positions. Some of them are useless. Na tulete heshima. Hizi positions imeleta kiburi. Kenya is the only country ukisikia all the rich people, majority of them, they're politicians. I don't know, you hear the Mois, you hear the Kenyattas, you hear the Nyachais, you hear the Biwots, I don't know, Ndegwas, all this manner of people have gone through, I think, public in politics tu ni maundia pesa. Other countries, at least utasikia watu, utajua ni biashara. You go to Tanzania, here more doji, you can see more cola, more brand, more what. Unaona kabisa there are industries that can be attributed to them. Hapa lakini jamani ni ukora. Anyway, ni sawa. I think my 2 minutes are done. I wouldn't want to take much of the time. Thank you very much. And
Thank you very much.
Well done,
Aaron,
Madam President, for what you're doing.
thank you. Aaron, do you have the microphone? Molly, kindly
Hey,
proceed.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Molly, and I know that a lot of people have spoken about so much that there's nothing deep enough that I would say that it would even be deeper than what everyone has said. So all I want to say is encourage everyone. I'm very sorry for the deaths. I watched that today, and it's almost like your heart sinks so low, and some days you feel like it can't sink low, and you get up and there's even more things to make our hearts sink. I'm very sorry for the families that are going to face that, to hear about their loved ones that they will never see again. So I'm quite sorry for that. Yesterday I watched a morning show on Spice FM before I went to bed, and there was a speaker, a Sudanese representative, and he spoke about the different things, the wars he's been through, and his fears for Kenya and what might end up happening to Kenya if we keep this up. And then this morning when I woke up, I was looking at X, and I started seeing different people coming up and saying, we should not let Kenya sink. But what I want to tell you is this. Yes, there's no African country that has had a president resign and have peace after that. But you are Kenya. There's many countries in the world that had presidents resign. In 1990, Margaret Thatcher resigned. The UK still stood firm. In 1974, Nixon in the US, he resigned. The world went forward. The US went forward. It did not sink. So do not compare yourself with the countries in Africa. You are Kenya, and you can be the first one. Another thing is everything kept constant. Right now, let's say we don't die from disease. We don't die from any of that. Everything kept constant. Every one of us has approximately, let's say, lives to be 100. Some of us have 40, 50 years to live. The younger generations, Gen Z, you have 60, 70 more years to live. This is your world. This is the Kenya you will live in if you don't do anything. Do everything according to the Constitution, but make the Kenya you want for yourself. Do not give up. Do not be afraid. Do not give up. I have like the earlier speaker, one of the speakers said they grew up really poor. I'm one of those that grew up that poor. I do not know how I made it here. Somehow, sometimes I'm shocked. I'm a student doctor right now in the US, and every time I come home, my heart just breaks with the healthcare situation, breaks for one reason or the other. I try my best, but even my best is not enough. But having met so many people, it made me look at Kenyans, and it's making me look at Kenyans right now. And what I found out is this: you are an extremely bright people. You are extremely passionate and you love your country. And I know people keep comparing Kenya with the US, and that there's so many people that there's so many good things in the US. I will tell you it's a no. I've been in the US healthcare system, working as a student and as a nursing student, then as a student doctor now, and soon to be a doctor. And if the US is not that 100% place that people think it is, it has so many issues. And Kenya has something that the US doesn't have. It has young people that are extremely bright, that I look at them and I see such a different Kenya. The Kenya I see in my head, goodness, I would never live anywhere if there was that Kenya. And I would like to come home and I would like to walk into a patient's room and say, hello, it's me, I'm Dr. So and so, and I'm here to serve you. I would like to serve my people. So let's not give up. The lady that mentioned that she's out there doing stuff, let's try and break into groups. And if there is something you're good at, give service to that. The people that are I would like to see where I can contribute. If I have a little bit of money that goes to, let's say, buy people in the villages, someone else
Thank you.
volunteers,
Thank
but
you,
I can
Molly.
buy the book.
Thank you, Molly.
So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Molly.
Thank you for the opportunity, though.
Dudley,
Okay.
if you can pick it up for the next speakers, kindly, if you don't mind.
Umbachi, you can speak.
Umbati, are you
Believe
there?
Umbachi. Are you online?
Yeah. It's just that I'm busy on transit, but can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Kindly
Yes, we
proceed.
can hear you.
Yeah, so I won't say much. I think I'll speak for like 3 minutes because I'm heading somewhere. Mine, I'll just roll it back to the first point. For me, it's all about the value of life. Ever since Rex Masai, the first person died, and I don't think people are actually angry enough because me, if maandamano ikiitwa from Monday to Friday, I'll always show up because of the try just to bring back the value of life. Because all these leaders, the politicians, over the years, we've normalized these killings, abductions, and then we'll meet, we'll have dialogue, and then everything will move on as if nothing happened, which is not true. So for that to stop, that's why I'm saying that as in Tuesday, anyone may anaweza, let's turn out in large numbers, if not only for the guys who were killed, the ones that we actually know, the ones we saw being shot outside parliament, and the bodies being retrieved today that we still don't know the story yet. So there's something sinister, and it's all about, we have to put these people to account, these leaders. They have to know that the days, that those eras, the Moi eras, the days of people disappearing and then life continues like nothing happened, has to stop. We have to live like a civilized society. We can't be proud of ourselves. I don't know, we have a 4 trillion economy, such and such, we are the best in Africa. But when it comes to a simple principle like just valuing life, it's really not picking up. So for me, we have to put everyone to account, even the guys who've already resigned, the likes of Kindiki, Koome. These people have to be arrested, they have to be prosecuted. The families of the dead, they have to get closure. And I believe how we handle these is going to determine how future leaders or whoever will be in power in future is going to treat life. Because if we let this slide and even if things change, even if Ruto goes and no one is put to account. Whoever comes, however good he is, even good people sometimes do change and become bad people. But if systems are put in place, if examples are set early, even the person that's going to come in future will have something in history to see. Okay, I don't want to end up like that person. If this happens, if I kill people, if I abduct people haphazardly, I'm going to end up like Kindiki, Ruto, Coleman. So we have to use these people as an example. On Tuesday, watu watokee maandamano. It's going to be peaceful. It's going to be big, and yeah, ujamaa atoke. As in, these people don't value life. For me, I think my back broke when that kid was, I don't know, shot how many times, and then in that interview, the president is here just lying that asking did the kid die? I think some things that just you can just see that okay, this guy doesn't value life at all, and that we have to bring back. We have to humble this guy. This guy is used to getting away with a lot of things. He thinks this country, he can't see yake, he can't see mtu. The country belongs to the people. Power belongs to the people. Sovereign power belongs to the people. Hata akitoka, there'll still be power, and the power is us, the people that will still have it. So on Tuesday, if you feel like okay, you've achieved every other thing you wanted, or don't know, finance bill imetolewa, the CSS have been dismissed, we still have a very, very long way as a country to try and bring back the value of life. One life lost was more than enough, and now each and every other day we keep losing more and more people. So if you have nothing to turn up on the street on Tuesday, it's for the respect for the value of life. Because yesterday it was them, tomorrow it might be you, and tomorrow it might be someone close to you. And if you don't speak up for those who've been murdered by the state, no one will be there to speak up for you. So let's set an example. Let's bring to book the killers, the Kindikis, the Comes, all the police officers, those rogue masked officers that were abducting and killing people haphazardly. As in, for me, mimi saizi penye nimefika, as in, I'm done with the whatever I was doing above. For me now, it's the value of life. All those responsible, they have to be brought to book. Whether they've already been fired, they're private citizens, they are still in government, they have to face the full wrath of law. As in, justice is our shield and defender, and that has to be put to practice. So just to set precedent, so that in future, our generation, our kids, the kids of our kids, the leaders they have, they know they no longer can get away with such sinister things. Yeah, so yeah, I'm in the middle of jumping through airports. That's all I have to say. We need to bring back the respect for value of life. And on Tuesday, to talk.
Thank you. Thank you for that contribution. I don't know, Mark. Mark, are you there? You have the microphone. If Mark is not there, Calvin,
Oh, thank you
kindly proceed.
for this opportunity.
Kindly take 2 minutes so that we can allow as many people to be able to make their contributions.
Okay, thank you. Well, I have a few issues I want to probably which have been shared by most of us. One, we need to revisit how many devolved units we have because they are gobbling a lot of our funds. I would propose the original 8 provinces, if possible. Then we also need to revisit the remuneration of most of these public officers, especially the MPs and other such officers like the senators and governors and so on. I propose 300 or something so that we ensure they are not as attractive as they are now. Then we need to abolish things like the CDF so that we can redirect them to maybe to education so that it can be affordable or free to the tertiary levels. The other thing is we need to look at the basics that the government offers us. For example, the ID, the passports and all that, they are actually getting out of hand. Most Kenyans cannot afford them. And I just looked at an ID for one of the recent citizens who acquired a new one, and I see there's an expiry date on an ID of all the documents. So these are things which I think your body, the LSK, can push in case there is a place where they can have a discussion with the authorities so that they can relook at them. ID should be free or at least affordable, but it should not have an expiry date. This is the first time I'm seeing something of that kind. The other thing is I'm scared to see police officers in plain clothes and hooded. These are some of the guys that are getting it the opportunity to kidnap and maybe dump people out of sight. The other thing is the rescue operations at the quarry are not going as it should be. At least we should have a way of ensuring that we recover the bodies as soon as possible
Kindly
so
wind up.
that we are
You've
able
had the
to.
bell.
Yeah. Thank you. I think on that issue of the quarry, maybe the LSK should liaise with the authorities so that we are able to at least get the bodies when they are still recognizable. Thank you.
Thank you, Calvin. I think we had spoken on the question of what the Law Society is doing about those debts and stuff like that. I don't think it's proper we reiterate on
Dudley
those
Omanwa.
on that position.
Okay.
Madam President, can you hear me?
Dudley Manwa.
Yes.
You'll be taking over. We see how many more we can continue having this space for how long, and you guide the rest.
Okay.
Okay, Madam President.
Dudley, kindly
We
proceed.
can have Abdilatif next, but we wish to make a suggestion to the movement. There are changes that we can push for and get without touching the constitution. The moment you open up the constitution for change, then anything can come up to it. And a referendum is the most political of events. Both amendment routes, parliamentary initiative, popular initiative, must get some approval from the county assemblies, from parliament. Are we confident within the movement opening up the constitution to the political class for changing? Or would we rather work with the constitution as it is, but push for its implementation, full implementation, reduce CDF, eliminate the unconstitutional offices, work with the constitution as it is, and restore the dignity, the power of the independent commissions? Stress on the separation of powers between parliament and the executive, so parliament can oversight and perform its roles properly. My suggestion would be to make requests within the constitution. Accountability of people like Bungei. Those are things which do not need referendum. But once we step outside the constitution and we begin engaging in referendum talk.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm just checking if there's anyone who was speaking because I can't hear anyone. And I'll be co-hosting here as we move forward. So let me know by raising your hands if you want to speak. Then definitely you will go next. So thank you, Madam President, and I'll be helping here to co-host. Meanwhile, if you are speaking, let me know. Otherwise, you can mute your mic, and we continue the great conversation we're having over here.
Mr. Kach, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you, Dudley.
Okay, I was saying, just reacting to some of the suggestions coming up that we need.
So who was speaking before? I got added as a co-host. Was that Dennis or who was speaking?
Dudley is on the mic. Kindly, if you can allow him to proceed. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm speaking about the issue of suggesting that we reduce counties, eliminate women reps, eliminate nominated senators. Some of those suggestions are good, but they have a danger to them. They require a referendum. Now, a referendum is one of the most political events you can ever have. When Kibaki lost the referendum in 2005, he had to dissolve parliament.
something that has only happened 19 years after today. So we'd rather make requests within the constitution, require the constitution to be implemented fully than require it to be changed. Because the moment you move towards a referendum, then you center the political elites. They'll drive the process, they'll change parts you did not want to be changed, they'll do all manner of things to the document. So perhaps we could concentrate on changes that we can make working with the constitution as it is now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dudley. We PLO, can you make your remarks, Wakili, quickly, so that we can allow the other parties, if you have the microphone?
Thank you. Well, I'll just take 5 minutes maximum before I wrap up. The conversations have been eye-opening, and I think patriots who've joined here have taken a thing or two with them. So the other day when the president purportedly made the remarks to have or to ban Harambees, for me it was out of place, because when you look at the public office ethics, Section 13 of the Public Offices Ethics, Act, technically it outlaws Harambees, but ours is a problem of compliance with the laws. So it didn't take it shouldn't have taken the president's declaration for us to ban Harambees when we have a law that stipulates, public officers should not in any way engage, in or use their offices or place of work as a venue for soliciting or even collecting Harambees, or even as a collector or promoter of a public collection, like what Sudi and the likes have been doing. So compliance of the law is something we should be keen on. And then the other issue is about, I don't know how many are aware here, but in less than 23 hours, from now, because you're technically on a Sunday, the Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Service, popularly known as KEFIS, released a notice the other day on notice to importers and exporters of agricultural produce or products on the implementation of fees for what we call phytosanitary services. So essentially, what KEFIS is saying is that under the KEFIS Act, which came into operation on 1st of September 2016 after its enactment 4 years prior, is that this act now, KEFIS is saying they are mandated to now implement the Plant Protection Act CAP 324, pursuant to these provisions and pursuant to the legal notice number 48 of 2009, Part B, effective 15th July, there will be an increment of fees. And then, do you know what's funny? That this particular legal notice on 2nd of March 2009, who was the Minister for Agriculture? Your current president. So be that as it may, then the importers and exporters of agricultural products now will face, some challenge when it comes to the ease of doing business because of the increment of these fees. And perhaps, LSK would advise how best, we can proceed with this. And then, my second last position is on the sensitization and awareness creation of civic education of the legislative process. Mzalendo Trust on Monday will be hosting a space from 7 to 9:30, and I'll be part and parcel of the panel because the public policy and legislative affairs, practice of law, that's my forte. And I was listening in to the lady who was talking about how best do you amplify civic education on matters, bills, policies, statutory instruments. Well, I'm here, and perhaps we can liaise with Mzalendo Trust. Mzalendo Trust has a tool called Dokeze. It basically is a bill tracker, that keeps you on track on what stage are we on this bill. So there are 6 particular bills that should be our key focus in as much as the financial
Wakili, wind up kindly if you don't mind. Sorry for interjecting here.
One of these three bills is the conflict of interest bill, the anti-corruption and economic crimes bill, and the election amendment bill of 2024. So on Monday, I think that the space could be of utmost importance to you, all of you, to see how best we can amplify the civic education. So with that, I rest my case.
Thank you very much, Council PLO. Dennis, are you there? You have the microphone.
I think
Dennis, you can hear me?
should be Rufus and then Abdi.
Oh, Rufus. Thank you, Dudley. I don't know. Rufus seems to be not responding. Abdi?
Hi. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Let's have Rufus. Is that Rufus speaking?
Yeah.
Yes.
Kindly proceed. Kindly.
Hi, everyone. So first, I would like to thank Faith Odhiambo for standing on business, for raising the bar, and making sure that every Kenyan is confident with the current legal administration, and people can actually practice their own democratic rights. So besides that, I still have a question, and this is a concern I've just developed over the last couple of spaces that I've dropped. Giving them a platform to address over 10,000 Kenyans without a proper introduction. Hold them back to what they are saying. So that didn't go well with me. So besides that, my most important contribution to the space is current President William Ruto. If you're all aware, you know what happened on every person was representing their representatives in the country. There was a lot of foreign presence in parliament. So my question to Faith Odhiambo, and this is in a very positive way, is there a way of addressing the people who administrated the passing of the finance bill in parliament, and also the IMF that allegedly drafted the finance bill, so that we can see a way forward? And the real big question is, having seen the debts that we have accumulated over time, I understand this is not just a William Ruto problem. It's a problem that has developed over time from the previous administration plus the current administration, where even David D has acknowledged that our debts are currently unsustainable. Why are they pushing for more finance bills that are set to make sure that Kenyans are getting even more punitively taxed to a level that they cannot adjust further, having seen the projections for the previous bill, Finance Bill 2023, that was looking to make a lot of expansions to the tax policy, but it did not reflect in terms of tax revenue, which means that we had hit the Laffer curve. And now we are just expanding these tax base, tax rates, without considering that we can do fiscal consolidation by cutting on our expenditure. So why is it that the IMF and World Bank are more inclined to raise revenues, whereas we had the option to cut on our side from the wasteful spending that was happening in the country? So I hope the LSK president answers this. And if there's a legal way we can address this, I would really appreciate feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rufus, Abdi. And even as Abdi takes up the microphone, I think as the Law Society, and I think Madam President will be able to respond to some of the questions that you have raised right now. We are not able to ascertain the identity of the individuals participating, but they're human beings. This is a public discourse, and that's why we are having public discourse. We don't care who listens. I believe government has its agents on this forum to inform them as to what the members of the public are saying. And that's why we're allowing each and every other person to speak and, put their perspectives publicly as to what they think about this government. And therefore, it's important to appreciate the fact that as a law society, we cannot be able to ascertain the identity of every individual who makes contribution on this space. Kindly, if you can allow me, Abdi, are you there? If you can take up the microphone.
Yes, I'll just be quick. Thank you for this space. I'm joining from Toronto. And sorry, I'm on the highway now. I just have one question that we have been asking. Now that there is the deployment of the military and to restore law and order, my question would be, is this a precursor that is preparing us for a state of emergency? And what is it like? Is it Article 58 or something? So this is what I wanted to know, because I think deploying the military and then maybe are we being prepared for state of emergency? This is my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. I think, Dudley, I hope you've taken up what Abdi has said. You can be able to respond. Let's pick up Dan Ojoa. Dan, are you there?
Hello?
Kindly take up a minute or two.
Are you getting?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, mine first of all is to call upon everyone to turn out. We don't have to wait until Tuesday for us to turn out and say no and enough is enough, because what we are seeing is happening right now. Basically, if we are truly a country that is actually caring about what we are, we have to come out. And another thing, I'm calling upon people, we need to comb Ngong Forest, because we've seen what is happening with the quarries. We've seen everything, and we don't have to repeat that. So the basic thing over here is I have to call upon everyone, come out. Let's hold Ruto accountable, because he's the one leading the government. We have to hold him accountable. We have to ask him exactly why he's doing all these things that are happening. And another thing that I would like to call upon everyone is we push for a new election, because we have to have new leaders in place. What we have right now are leaders who are compromised. What we have right now are leaders who are not responsible for what they're supposed to be responsible for. So basically, I call upon us all to come out and say enough is enough. We come out and show the world that we are actually tired of what is happening in Kenya. Everyone is seeing it out there, and everyone is actually tired of it, however much some of them are not talking out. So, and then the last part of it, like I've also said, the issue of the elections, because we are saying we have a parliament that has been bought, a parliament that cannot stand for the people that elected them. We have a presidency that is not standing for the people that elected it, and enough is enough. That's all I can call for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Collins. Mehdi, perhaps then we can go back to Dudley.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the chance. So yeah, it's time we say enough is enough. Ruto must go together with his rogue regime. And it's so sad to see what's happening in our country. People. The hashtag is Ruto must go. And I don't know where this idea of people saying that if the president resigns, that military will take over. I don't think that's in our constitution, because there's also the deputy president. So I think we should push even for Ruto and Rigathi to resign. That would be easier, because I don't think there's a void in our constitution that allows the military to take over power, because we also have the speaker. And so, guys, it's time we say enough is enough. And on Tuesday, we come out in large numbers. Let's defend our country. Let's defend this nation that our forefathers died for. Thank you, and we are together in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mehdi. Collins, 1 minute, then we take the microphone back.
Thank you very much. So first of all, I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak, and also my condolences to all the people we've lost. First, I'd like to remind all of us that the battle is long and hard, and we should not speak as if we've won. We've just won a few battles and the war is still ongoing. Now, secondly, just like one of us also said, let's not speak as if we do not have a constitution that has been partially implemented. In all the 10 or so years that we've had it, it has never been fully implemented, so we should not think about changing it. Finally, I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a communications expert. I was in 2 of the most recent maandamanos, and what I noticed is for those of us who are on ground, there's a bit of lack of communication. So let's enhance, for example, songs. So if we have people among us who can sing and drive the people on the ground to peacefully express their displeasure against the government, that would be one good approach. I voted for this president. I love this president, but he no longer represents me. So what I would ask for all of us is we speak in one voice. Let's not talk as if we've won or there's something that has changed. When he was campaigning, to me, he was my best option. But at this point, he does not represent me. And it is good that all of us stand up, all of us, if there's some of us who can sing songs or make new songs for the revolution, that is what we should do. Peacefully take back our country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dudley?
Yeah, thank you, Collins.
Dudley, kindly pick.
We'll come to Logic Flow, followed by SLC. 2 minutes each. Logic Flow, you have the mic.
As we wait for Deadly, if you've just spoken and you wish to give somebody your space, just pull yourself off from the speaker panel, and then we can add the next speakers. Deadly, yeah.
Okay, could we have Logic Flow take the floor, followed by SLC? Logic Flow. Okay, I don't know what the issue is. Ombogo, you can have the mic.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to address the issue. Kuna msee amesema he was talking about if the president goes, I don't know, the deputy president takes over or the military. In our constitution, if the president goes, it's the deputy president who takes over. And if all of them go, it's the Speaker of the National Assembly who takes over for 60 days. And as we push for Ruto must go, as they prepare for election and everything. On IEBC, which is supposed maybe to run the elections, I don't know, I read somewhere where they said maybe we are members of AU or something. They can supervise the same if the team is not in place. So there's nothing like anarchy or a vacuum. That's just wanapush your agenda to make the millennials ama wazee wetu waone ni kama maybe tunataka kupindua serikali, kitu kama hiyo, ni wasupport hii struggle. So it's just the misinformation ama hiyo propaganda wanapush to make us maybe look bad people. But there's nothing like anarchy ama tunataka kupindua serikali. We just want the best for the country and we want our leaders to be very responsible and everything. Alafu kuna rumors maybe sijui wanataka kurudisha watu wa akina Junet, akina Governor Joho to take over the cabinet ministries and everything. We say that we want new people, new faces, and competent people. So maybe kama kuna watu wa serikali hapa wanasikia, mwende mwambie president in case of anything, kama anatuletea watu ni watu wageni, new faces. We are not going to recycle rejects to lead us again. Thank you. I think I'm done.
Okay, thank you so much. We can have advice and Bonai.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. And I would really like to ask two questions zenye zinahusu hii maandamano because mimi as a Gen Z or as a millennial or the group we are working very hard to represent the movement kwa ground, but mimi personally sioni kama the legal camp ya hii country ama lawyers na whoever wenye wanashughulika na mambo ya sheria wakipeleka hii maandamano kwa corridors za justice. Kwa nini nauliza hivyo? Ni kwa sababu ukiangalia article 1 ya constitution venye mimi naielewa, mpaka saa hii haijatuambia the procedures that are supposed to be used ndio wananchi wachukue powers from the government or from the parliament. But to my understanding, ile kutolewa mesa ama ile kuingia parliament ilikuwa ina show a vote of no confidence. I would want to believe that. So why are we not having the legitimacy of the parliament being questioned? And again, if the legitimacy of the parliament is questioned, what outcomes ama in case koti rule that the parliament sio legit parliament ni legitimate, ni njia gani ingine tunaweza taka kufuata? Hiyo ni swali moja ningependa kujibiwa. Ya pili, from a podium of ignorance, I want to believe that IMF ama bank zingine zote zenye zina lend Kenya pesa ziko na ile swali ya kuuliza, yes, Kenya inataka deni, ina qualify kupata hiyo deni, na ni sheria gani za hiyo nchi zinaongoza hii nchi ama zinaiallow kujia deni kwetu? Niko sure before wapeane deni zenye sisi tuko nazo, kuna maswali kama hizo waliuliza na wakakuwa presented with a case enye waliangalia wakasema Kenya ina qualify to take up those loans. Now because koti ilisema that ile kesi ya Omtata iwezi endelea kwa sababu they questioned mali alitoa evidence yake ama documents zenye alipresent, why are we not suing the IMF na hizo bank zingine zenye zilipeana Eurobond kuwauliza mulipeana hii loan kwa kuona Kenya imefikia hizo matakwa za constitution yenye inawalead kujia loan? Because at the end of the day, every business of the government is described by the constitution. Every move yenye serikali inafanya, I expect it to be backed up by law. Kwa nini hatupitii hizi njia mbili? Why are you guys nyi mwenye mko kwa corridors za justice ampiti hizi avenues? Hiyo ndio swali tu ningependa kujibiwa.
All right. So on those who've raised their hands, I think I think my co-host has dropped, but I want to know who was the next to speak. Was that Keegan or who was the next in line?
I think it was me.
Okay,
No, I
please
also
proceed.
think it was me.
Okay, why
But
don't we start
because
with
my submission
Keegan?
will
Keegan.
be quite short.
Okay, Keegan. Why don't you let was that Born to go first, and then you go next?
Much obliged.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, President Faith and the co-host for giving us this chance. So mine, it is just a question regarding to the constitutionality of the current parliament, because the last parliament, I remember my Chief Justice Maraga said that ruled that it had not attained the two-third gender and it was illegal. And I don't think even the current parliament is up to that. Then the second and last question is that why is it that we don't want to set the standard like the other developed nation, whereby the president, when the president was being sworn in, he was sworn in and he is supposed to safeguard people's property, people's life, his country, people's lives, properties, and all that. So picketing, it is a constitution. We are allowed to picket. He's supposed to bring the army. He's supposed to bring the army to safeguard people's property, so that those who are picketing not to loot the properties that belongs to the citizen, and also to safeguard that lives are not lost. Why don't he align those armies? We need to picket and go directly to State House. It is very clear we need to go to State House. We just need to align the armies along the road and allow this generation, because we've said enough is enough. We no longer trust the president because of what is happening. Since we started with Shakahola, we've lost a lot of lives on the way. We are no longer having confidence with the current regime and the president. It's all that. Thank you.
Thank you for your submission, Bon Eye. And we'll be going to Keegan. But let me just read out the next logical flow so that everyone knows their position in the speakers panel. So we'll start with Keegan, then we'll have Empty, Mariga, Toiti, then we'll have Kenyan Global Network, that will be the third. We'll have Logic Flow, that will be the fourth. And we'll have Umbogo, that will be the fifth. So just make sure you remember your position so that we can have a very good fluid flow in this. And thank you so much for your contribution.
Thank you for having me on the floor of the space. Basically, what we are having is a call, and a desperate call for a constitutional moment. And we know for a fact that the constitution that we have now was supposed to be revised much longer ago. And we know that if we do not have the type of leadership that we have, say, at LSK, then everything goes astray. But I will say this. We are not in a position to say, sack everyone and bring them back, because the citizens have decided. And the citizens are the people who put these others in power. Now, since we always said that the shoe will be on the left, but at one point it will be on the right, I want to urge everyone who still thinks that we should not forge ahead and agree on a united government to think twice. Let me tell you something. We have never heard of LSK president that champions the rights like the one that is there currently. And also, it must also be known without fear that she was also part of dialogue. Her appointment was because people met and said, listen, what is the best approach? Who is the best person? And she rightfully emerged. Now, it would also be unfair for us to go against a process that is taking its shape, in as far as it really convenes, what would you call it? It looks to me, it looks like a government of national unity formation, which is fine. And I think it holds a lot of weight because with it then comes so many individuals that hold so many votes. But where is it for the youth? And remember, it is the youth that we respect today. It does not matter how we coin it. Everything you see is because the youth made it happen. So, because the youth made it happen, and LSK Prezo, now that you are Prezo, you are one of the three arms of government. Why don't we have a fourth one? Not the fourth estate, because we are the fourth estate as the youth. So don't give us the fourth estate. We want a fourth arm or a representation at the executive of government. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Keegan. And if you may please just drop off from the speaker so that we add the next. Before the next speaker goes up, I want to let those who have requested to speak, this will be the order of the next 5 people who've requested. Abdi, Rosemary, Lita Free Kenya, Luya President, and Eric MB. So just know I'll keep adding you in that order. So don't despair. I'm very fair, and I'm just putting out the names of those who are next. I'd already mentioned the next speaker, so just take over the next speaker. Thank you.
Sure thing. Hey, everyone. This is Marika speaking. I'll be really quick, but I think there's something it might bring to mind. So every election period, it seems, not just this election, but previous elections from this, the conversation around overrepresentation comes alive, right? And in many ways, it's held together by false comparisons to global North countries, and in many ways ignoring the historical, many times social context of how those democracies actually work, right? A very basic example is comparisons to countries like the US, to states like Texas, and people pointing out, Kenya would be half the size of Texas, give or take, right? But in many of these situations, you ignore, first of all, you ignore the other layers of elected government there are in the US. People forget that outside of what you look at as the Senate and everything else, there is the city mayors, which add a different layer, the school districts, which add a different layer, the sheriffs and the judges, which add a completely unique layer of government, which isn't unique to Kenya, right? And so one of the things I think I'd request, and someone else would have the capacity to do this, is we may perhaps need a different space and have a refresh on the Kenyan constitution, not necessarily its content, but I do believe it's absolutely necessary to have a conversation on the history of the Kenyan constitution, right? If you go back to how it was formed and why it was formed, right, and for example, how the counties were agreed upon, how the distribution of those, many of those went back to trying to redress historical injustices. This is why some of these counties were split. This is why some of these constituencies were split. They were a bit too big. There were a lot of sparring and different communal interests, and there's a lot of violence attached to especially the way boundaries were created. And so I do believe it's very important to look back at a lot of Kenya's historical reports, the Waki report, the land report and everything, to understand how and why a lot of these things were negotiated. Not that I'm not saying that we shouldn't revise our constitution. I believe it's very important to read the history of why all these were created, because a lot of these historical injustices have never been corrected. And in many ways, changing the constitution without addressing these injustices just furthers and sometimes increases the injustices and the inequality going around, from communal to tribal to gender, and all these things put together. So I do believe there's a lot of historical knowledge we need to expound on before trying to change the constitution to understand the why. That's my contribution for today. And thank you so much for the space.
Thank you so much, MT. Very valuable submissions. I also keep reminding you, remember your position, as I mentioned it earlier. I think, who will be the next? If you remember your position, who was after MT?
Me.
Just go ahead. Yeah, okay. Kenyan Gobo, go ahead.
Thank you very much, fellow Kenyans. First of all, I want to begin by saying that Ruto and Gachagua must go, and then express my condolences to the families, the loved ones who have succumbed to the atrocities of this regime. So I do not know how long am I given to speak. Can I have an idea, please?
I suggest let's keep it to 2 minutes, and so that we can have more people also express their views. You can always come back later, but let's keep it to 2 minutes.
Okay, I hope I'll be able to manage 2 minutes. I would have wanted a bit more, but yeah, I'll try my best. For me, I think that the current political discourse that centers right now on the Ruto must go, it should actually continue. We need to ensure that we apply a lot of pressure until Ruto exits power. Not in 2027. It should actually happen now. And the reason why I would have wanted to even have more time a bit, but I'll try to squeeze it, is because I wanted to draw your attention to the recent speeches by Raila Odinga and James Orengo in Kakamega, which are likely, I think, to set the agenda for the next phase of the debate. And the debate right now that people are having is this issue of dialogue. However, the pressing issue that I think we need to look at right now is that whose dialogue and to what end? And I think that the coming weeks and months, the focus will likely shift between the people's dialogue proposed by Orengo and Raila and the Ruto's dialogue efforts. And given the context of the people's dialogue, I think that given the context that we have right now, I tend to think that the people's dialogue will actually prevail for various reasons. So, as the Law Society of Kenya that is hosting us, I think it is crucial that you contemplate the nature, structure, and desired outcomes of this people's dialogue, including setting realistic timelines, because I think that it is coming. And so, going to historical review, it is essential to understand that the precedence of dialogue in Kenya, across Africa and globally, it has actually worked. But how has it worked and how has it failed? If you look at some of the things that are happening right now in Kenya, you realize that we have achieved a lot through dialogue, but a lot of the time, these dialogues have been hijacked by some people. There are many people who fought during independence, and some of the things that we fought during independence have not been achieved right now, up to now. What we ended up having is, failed dreams. That people actually, people who fought for Mau Mau ended up not benefiting. Kenyatta came and actually was planted by the British and ended up taking power. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. Just continue. We can hear you.
Yeah. It ended up taking power, from the people who are the real people who are fighting for democratization or for the independence. We saw people coming and hijacking the people's process. And I think for me to then save time, I want to that we first of all know what are the international agreements that Kenya has with Western countries. Why are we paying debts that we do not know where they came from? Why are we perpetually in debt as Kenyans? That is one. Two, I want the Law Society to help us establish why is it that in Kenya we have a situation where leadership rotates between two tribes? What is it that we can do to reset that? Because I think that other than what maybe other people may think, I think that this situation, if it continues, because it has economic implications, I feel like if it continues, we are putting these two tribes at a risk, because a time is going to come in Kenya where the communities, in fact, we have seen what the Gen Zs have done, the radical nature of their protest and the results that they have. Another generation is going to come that are going to say that, look, we are going to apply affirmative action. There's no Kikuyu or Kalenjin who is going to actually be allowed to be in any senior position in government. How do we avoid that? How do we use this momentum to actually ensure that we avoid that? Thirdly and lastly, and this is to Faith, and I think somebody had raised this question before, we are told about the debts that Kenyans have, and we know that there's a law that was changed illegally, the one that is allowing told that that thing was done illegally, and that is what is allowing these people now to borrow money, put it in another account that we cannot account for, and then by the time this money is supposed to be paid is when it is budget. Can help us do to change this kind of situation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Kenyan Global. That was really a great submission. I'm going to announce, if you don't mind, I'm going to announce, I don't know who was the next, but I'm going to announce the next 10 speakers. So you need to remember your number, your position, so that you can easily move to the next. You just unmute your mic and move to speaking. If that's okay, can I go ahead and announce the next 10 speakers? Unless I'd already mentioned you, but I'm going to announce the next 10 speakers. So the most important thing, just remember your number, okay? So the first speaker is going to be Logic Flow. I think he'd come before. And then OK, Keith Onomics, you will be number 2. Then Rosemary Musumba, you'll be number 3. Luya President, you'll be number 4. Kosianga, you'll be number 5. Gabu Slim, you'll be number 6. Dijua, you'll be number 7. Western Silaho, you'll be number 8. Calvin, you'll be number 9. Just remember your number so that you can move on to speaking position immediately. Your previous speaker spoken. On those who are on the wait list, Maurice Ndole, you'll be number 1. I'll add you right now. And then after that, there'll be Alilantes Music. Then there'll be Kimaru Kering, Eric MB Jr., Ruch Senior, Frank Mengi, Warle Minor, George Kamau, Linus Kipsingay. So all of you are next on list to be added to the speaker panel. So I'm just making it very transparent so that everyone knows where they are, okay? Thank you. Yeah, the next speaker you can pick up. Unless that next speaker has dropped off. I think it was supposed to be Logic somebody, if I'm not wrong. Logic Flow? Logic Flow, can you hear us? Okay. Who was the next after Logic Flow?
I was number 3, Mr. Catch.
Who was after Logic Flow? Were you after Logic Flow or?
Yes.
Okay, then pick up. I think Logic Flow probably is having connection issues. Just pick it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much again for the host. I will not take long because I spoke earlier, so I don't really want to buttress, repeat myself. I want to actually yield. If you're giving me 2 minutes, I want to yield my other minute to Kenyan Global. Because he had very good points and I know him personally. So nataka kusikia points zake. Mine is just a shout out to some of the great speakers who've been here, and I've been trying to get hold of them, but it's kind of difficult. One of them being the lady who spoke, I think she's from Let's Talk Law. I tried following her, but you have to verify her account. So inanipatia too many problems. She ought to actually get in touch with me because she talked about an issue which we can always work together. And this is also about networking Nanini. I think she has some challenges there. And, I could give some ideas in terms of helping here and there. Kitu cha pili, I also want to give a shout out to was just wonderful. I even, our lady from who don't to do that, almost 1,000 things, but you start off with, I know it's a big hill. It may sound insurmountable, but you're up to the task. So I want to yield my other minute to Global. Go ahead, Ndugu. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your submission, Rosemary. Global. Actually, just the next number. I'd given all the numbers, so the next logical person should just take over. If it was Global, please go ahead.
Well, we can't keep on waiting for Global forever. Allow me to say this. Or maybe Global is back? No problem.
Keegan, I think you had already spoken and
No
I'd
problem. It was
given...
just an added submission. No problem.
No problem, but I'm just making sure that I know who was after Global. If you know you're
No,
after
no problem.
Global, just get
As
ready.
we wait, maybe again it might be a connection problem. But allow me to say this. Allow me to say this. We have never had a more competent and more vibrant and more loved person in the office of LSK as we have in Faith. Truly, she is the faith that we need. So please, let her go over and beyond to champion things that will progress what sparked everything that happened. What do I mean
Thank
by
you so
everything
much.
that happened?
Thank you so much, Keegan.
Thank you.
That was great submission. Let's give Global a chance, and then if you know your position, just make sure you raise your hands up so that you go next. But Keegan, I really appreciate, and that's a good submission. Global.
Yes, thank you again. I just, in the spirit of honesty and transparency, I think I'd spoken. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, and that's a
Yes.
good.
Yeah, I'd spoken, and I would want to give other people a chance. I would want to then thank you very much, my sister Rosemary, our mom Rosemary, for giving me the opportunity. But I'd spoken, so I really would want to give other people a chance. I'll chime in later. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your integrity and love for this particular space. I would want to ask if you know your position, because what I'm trying to do, the tool is not very perfect, so I don't want to skip somebody. So I try to give everyone a position. So if you know you are next, just let me know. Was that Kisianga or Western? Or one of you. But if you're in the speaker panel, I think most of you have not spoken. So please go ahead and let me know. So let's start with Kisianga right now. Okay. I think I can't hear Kisianga. I don't know who wants to go next. That will be Ali Lantes, who's raised his hand. But the reason why I'm asking you to raise your hand so that I know whether, because there could be time difference, somebody could fall asleep and so on and so forth. So raising your hand makes me know that you're ready to go. Ali Lantes, please go ahead. Anyone who can hear Ali Lantes, unless I'm just having issues on my side? All the speakers, if you can hear Ali Lantes, let me know.
Chair, I can't hear the speaker. Can I go?
Okay. Yeah, you'll go next, but let me announce the next speaker so that you know your position. Okay. I think that is Western. So Western, you'll go first. And this is the order. After Western, Morris Ndole Kosianga will be number 2. Sorry, Morris Ndole will be number 2. Kosianga will be number 3. Kimaru Kering will be number 4. Gabu Slim will be number 5. Dijua will be number 6. Kate Onomics will be number 7. And Western Shilaho will be number 8. Remember your position so that we just pick up from the next speaker. So pick it up. Thank you. Western, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much. And fellow compatriots, my sympathies to the people we've lost through this struggle. It did not have to come to this, but then that is what it is, and that is the problem that is keeping some of us awake at this particular hour. One, I wish to draw you to draw your attention to the fact that Kenya's constitutions, and this starts with the independent constitution as well as the current constitution promulgated in 2010, have been more honored in breach than observance. And that's worrisome. It's worrisome because in as much as we have got a constitution that we celebrate, we regard as being progressive, we do not have constitutionalism. We do not have political actors who believe in the rule of law. And that is the crux of the problem. Such that history is of importance here. For some of us who recall when that constitution was being promulgated in 2010, one of the chief guests was former Sudanese strongman Omar al-Bashir, at the time indicted by the ICC for crimes against humanity and genocide. He was a chief guest, state guest by the Republic of Kenya under Mwai Kibaki. That was a false start from a symbolic perspective, and it has come to pass. It was a false start. that impunity would continue reigning supreme, and indeed it has continued reigning supreme. The other thing I wish to alert my fellow compatriots to is that there's this tendency to draw a one-on-one relationship between the current William Ruto administration and the Moi administration. And in between, forget a whole host of things. William Ruto is as much a Daniel Moi protege as he is Kibaki's. Because in the aftermath of the 2007-2008 post-election violence, if people remember again history, on two occasions in Eldoret and Nyeri, Mwai Kibaki hoisted William Ruto, at that time agriculture minister, on the presidential ceremonial Land Rover. That was symbolic. In politics, as they say, nothing happens by chance. It was symbolic. It was that this person is worthy of succeeding me. This person is worthy of governing this country. No president just invites anybody, to be close to a symbol of power like that. So honestly speaking, we have had an incestuous political elite. And even some of you know, when it comes to inbreeding in the animal kingdom, the byproducts are usually dysfunctional. So this political elite in Kenya is incestuous, practices inbreeding, and that's why it's dysfunctional, incapable of taking this country forward. It has been mentioned, for instance, that President William Ruto is supposed to appoint the Attorney General to advise him that there's a gap. In as much as he has dismissed the entire cabinet, he should move with speed and appoint a new Attorney General. But I ask, for what purpose? He doesn't take advice. And in any case, the office of the Attorney General historically has been very much integral to the institutionalization of impunity in Kenya. Whether you go back to the Njonjo era, the Anglophile, openly bigoted Attorney General we had, who criminalized just imagining that a president could die. That legacy is still here with us. The likes of Wako, highly cerebral, but user-friendly to the regime of the day under Daniel Mwai Kibaki. Whether you're talking about Githu Muigai, the scholarly, who once he was appointed the Attorney General, he became user-friendly to the regime of the day. He appeared before the ICC, but not in the interest of the Kenyan people, but in the interest of the establishment. So of what relevance would anybody occupy that office? The immediate Attorney General was part of the coalition, Kenya Kwanza, and he was appointed as a reward. So what do you expect William Ruto and Justin Muturi, the immediate Attorney General, to discuss? These were like buddies who are just rewarding each other. So it's imperative that we don't become ahistorical when we read the current political developments, painful as they are. They have got antecedents, and it's imperative that we understand that in order to proffer sustainable solutions. The other thing I caution my fellow compatriots is this propensity to look to external actors for solutions to our problems. I hear again and again the mention of the ICC. We have been to the ICC before. The Kenyan elite took the ICC to the cleaners. They did, made nonsense of the ICC, made nonsense of international criminal justice. The ICC has been involved in Africa's problems, in Uganda, in Sudan, in Congo, in Central African Republic. You go to those places, it has not been of any relevance. So what is the corollary? It is that solutions to our problems, economic, political, social, cultural, name it, will be homegrown, These institutions that are dysfunctional, we will have to rebuild them so that people who engage in economic sabotage, people who engage in political brutality, state violence, have to be brought to book and jailed in Kenya. That's when we can do that. That's when we can regard ourselves as a progressive society. But as long as we think that the ICC, I don't know, UN, Human Rights Watch will come to our aid, no, we have to perish that. Institutions of global governance are dysfunctional. They are skewed.
I think your 2 minutes are almost coming to an end. Maybe you can just summarize.
Okay, let me just land. So I think I wish to register also, like those who spoke before me, my appreciation to LSK and other compatriots who are committed to this struggle. Please let us not lose sight of the agenda, of the aim, and as much as possible, we de-ethnicize this revolution. This revolution, for it to be sustainable, it must first and foremost proceed from the brain ideationally, so that the way things were done before, we cut ranks with that and just be committed to the ideals, the values, the norms that will sustain our country and our society. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. If you remember your position, just go next. Who was after Western? Okay, who was after the person who was after Western? I can't keep track of the positions I gave to everyone, so I'm just trying to help see if there is anyone who remembers their position. So position 2, 3, 4. You can.
I was number 4.
You are number 4.
I was number 4.
Number 3 is
Yes.
not there. You are number 4. Okay, proceed.
All right. Good evening, everybody. This movement has been so keen on accountability, and today it got me thinking. And I want tech bros to help me on putting this idea together.